video teleconference notice for October the 29th, 2021. And we welcome everybody. We have Squire Muller here and Squire Sebastian, which are members of the committee. And we're here today to talk with Fleet Management Enterprise program. And we have also with us Sheriff Squire to listen and have a discussion about fleet management and the pros and cons and the pluses and minuses of this program. So we'll I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself and Joe.
Good morning, everyone. It's nice to virtually meet you. I've told everyone here that you guys get a gold star for your Zoom abilities. We need to take this back to our office. But my name's Jessie Gross. I work with Enterprise Fleet Management on the front end of onboarding new customers, new partners. My passion and focus is local government, and because I come from a background of working in nonprofit, so I know that dollars are important, how they're allocated is important, and how to multiply them is important. Been doing this, have a long list of current partners in the government space I work with, but that's my role is I do the onboarding, finding a good place to start, getting your pricing plan set up, and then you don't want me managing the life of your account. That is not my skill set. But I do pass the baton, and I brought with me who would be your account manager, Joe Yee. So I'll let Joe introduce himself.
Yes. Hello, everybody, and thanks for letting me join the meeting. I will say this is very sophisticated and something I've never seen before. So it really makes meetings like this nice because you can have a bunch of people and it's like everyone's live. So, but yeah, again, my name's Joe Yee. I'm a client strategy manager with Enterprise Fleet. I've been with Enterprise, now for 17 years. And I work with a lot of government clients, everybody from counties to cities, health departments, special districts. I mean, you name it. I would say probably half of my accounts are government. So I'm very well versed in anything related to government, fleet and pursuit vehicles, sheriff departments, police departments, and all that. But yeah, like Jessie said, my role, I come in after she kind of sets everything up, puts everything in motion. It's my job to execute the plan and really just long-term fleet management, financial recommendations. Because my goal is going to be to, can we continue to reduce spend, right? And then take as much off your plate when it comes to the fleet as possible as well. Because, you guys are busy doing other things. Probably you don't want to be dealing with the fleet related stuff as much. So I work with another person, an account fleet coordinator, who we would be your local account team. And he or she would be kind of great customer service contact in the office Monday through Fridays to help roll out the programs. And so really anything fleet related, I would take on from there long-term. And, I appreciate the opportunity. Look forward to working with you.
All right. So let's really, this is aimed specifically at Chris Squire, but we have the department heads on, and then I would like for it to kind of branch out how it can expand. Chris, tell us what your needs are, and then let's talk about what was in your budget and how you are continually looking at upgrading your vehicles.
So we need 38 cars up and running to be at full capacity to have cars for everybody that needs one. And when we buy them, we just usually go into July's budget, which is the judges and fiscal court budget, and normally we'll ask for 4 cars, and sometimes we'll get 1, sometimes you get 4, just depending on what happens. And then we also put in our budget 1 or 2 cars that we try to get as well. So usually we end up with 4 cars somehow or another. And that's kind of what it takes to keep the fleet up. And I believe right now only 7 of our vehicles have less than 100,000 miles, and a lot of them is pushing like 200,000. So, and that's where we get into like $7,000-8,000 engines and 3,000 or 4,000 for a transmission, and it just sometimes the car is not worth what the repair is.
Right.
And I noticed you just bought a Tahoe. Was it a Tahoe?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, like we got 1 Charger, 1 Tahoe, but we also totaled 2 vehicles in 2 weeks. So it's like you get 2 cars and you lost 2. And both of those accidents were not our fault, luckily. So, I mean, the insurance is paying on the last one, and we only got $12,000 for the one before that. So $12,000 can't buy you a car is the problem.
Yeah. Right,
So, you know, the two that were, the Tahoe's being upfitted and the Charger's already out, but we lost two more cars, so you're right back where you started.
yeah,
But as you all know, it's very hard to get anything, like, you can say you want an Explorer, you want a truck, or you want this or that, but sometimes you gotta take what's available, and that's, you know, where we're at this point. I mean, we would take any of the combination just to have cars, you know. where we need 'em.
operating, yeah.
So that's pretty much it, and, you know,
What about your maintenance? You're in your budget, I can't remember how much is in there. Is it
I
50,000?
think it's 87,000.
Yeah, that's right, okay.
And we probably, I haven't looked, but I'm sure we've pretty close to that, or maybe a little more. You know, we're at a lump sum budget, so we move things around, but I'd say if we looked, we probably spent that or more, because I know
Yeah.
we just ordered an engine for a Charger, and that's gonna be probably 5,500 or 6,000 by the time we get it put in, so.
And how long are you waiting until you even get that to?
The fastest engine, it's only taken about 2 weeks through Jasper to get it. They're gonna actually deliver it Monday, so it was faster than I expected.
But still 2 weeks without having
Yeah, I mean,
an
it'll be a
operating.
month
Right.
probably without that car, but
Right.
then it'll be back up and going.
Okay,
Okay, so, no, so to kind of recap, you're saying your goal is to get, if you could, 4 vehicles per maybe calendar year, which would be your budget year or something
Right.
along that line.
Yes. What really hurts us the most is like, you know, my first year in office in 19, we got 3 cars, and I think we bought 1 or 2. And then 2020, there wasn't any cars in the budget, so we got 0. And I think we ended up buying 1 or 2. Because, you know, with our asset forfeiture monies, you never know, like, you can have all this money in the bank, but you can't spend it until the
Right.
case is done. So I believe we bought 1 or 2, but when we skipped that year, it puts you a lot, you know, just puts you behind, because
Yeah. that's
why we say 4, but you can't do 4 when you're in 0 the next, and then 1 or 2.
yeah,
It'd be nice to know what you were gonna get. You
some
know.
stability,
Mhm.
right?
So then I turned to you all and and he said exactly what we're hearing. Last night, we had a discussion about a vehicle that we bought. It's impossible
Mhm,
to get,
mhm.
or you're gonna have to go almost 2 years before you can get something that
Right.
trucks are horrible
Right,
to get, and they're way overpriced if you
Right.
could get them. And so in his case, he had to get you wanted an Explorer, but you can only get what's out there in the market, right? And
Right.
Tahoe is one of those.
Right, he got, I think he said 100 in. So of course, when he called, it's kind of like a house. If you want a house and it's for sale, you better tell him you want it then.
right.
Because if you go back the next day, it's probably not gonna be there.
And you better have the cash to put down on it to secure it so that you get it.
Right.
Do you mind if I take over?
I want you to, that's
Okay.
I was leading.
Thank you. When I've talked with Chris, I'm gonna address everyone and kind of go through this. The things that I hear Chris saying, from our lens of what we do and being the fleet geeks and the experts in what not only your current vehicles are doing, but also looking at all the variables of the market, the availability, the inventory, the models, the manufacturers, looking at all of those moving parts. What we typically see when I go into work with a county is there's a lot of fluctuation year to year around your budgets, or then you factor in what's available. And there's a lot of inconsistency in unifying the fleet towards one vehicle type, which you get more incentives from manufacturers. There's also inconsistency with your dollars. So then you're having to rob Peter to pay Paul in some cases in terms of repairs versus purchasing a new vehicle. Our whole philosophy is to come in and bring stability and sustainability to your fleet. Now, your fleet is going to operate very differently than a light, medium duty fleet, but the same concept applies where when I'm hearing you need 38 to be at your functioning, right? You're typically purchasing maybe 3 or 4 a year if you can in some way. But most of those 38 that you have are at a high mileage right now at the brink of a risky behavior where you're going to be putting in new engines, new transmissions, yada, yada, yada. we look at that whole scope of everything that's going on, and I'm not gonna paint you a picture of unicorns, puppies, rainbows, sparkles, that there's a lot that's available right now. What we're able to offer our people that are currently partners with us is to say, okay, well, when GM shuts off or when Ford shuts off, we're able to redirect very quickly with a very similar like make model to get you what you need as fast as you can. We may, your lead times are gonna be your lead times, but we're able to back into and say, okay, if you're starting to plan your budget here, we know the lead time on this particular vehicle is going to be, let's call it 26 weeks or more, which is a long time. We're not going to be able to beat very much on that. But we are able to plan proactively to get you what you need ahead of time, and you're not paying for things until it delivers. So that's the other part of this, of it, as it's not hitting your budget until you have that vehicle fully equipped, ready to go on the road. So again, leaning on our planning, that's what Joe's whole responsibility is to say, okay, Chris, getting in front of it, we know we're gonna have to wait a year and a half. What can we go ahead and get on order? And if you have a vehicle go down in the meantime, how can we leverage our national resources to get you what you need as fast as possible? It's a unique environment. It ain't perfect, but I would definitely put Enterprise Fleet Management's purchase power and ability to find anything a step above what you as a local government entity are going to have. The cars are still yours. The fleet is still yours. How you operate them is totally fine, but we are going to be able to help you manage and bring some stability and some planning to that. I know I think 4 or 5 a year would be great to get you in a plan where you're replacing and cycling and having vehicles on no longer than a 5-year hold at max, to get rid of them and sell them where you can both make a profit on the resale and avoid spending money on high dollar repairs. But also, given the environment, we're advising people to get on order what you're going to need for the next 2 years because of how deliveries are operating also. So again, these are just things that we work with you on to find out where's your heartburn, what do you need right now, what are you going to need in the future, how can we leverage your low buy or sell high, and then get you what you need when you need it. It may not be lickety split like we usually can in this environment, but we can at least leverage something nationally, whereas you're kind of limited right now in a local scope to find either what's on a dealer lot, pay a higher price, and then, or you're stuck waiting and sinking money into repairs to Band-Aid yourself through waiting until a vehicle arrives. I just gave a fire hydrant of information. But at the end of the day, you buy so low and we sell high, and as a county government, you're not able to do that. But because we hold title on the vehicle, you operate as normal, we can sell your vehicle and you can roll that equity to then reduce the cost of your next vehicle while we plan and help strategize around the existing fleet to make sure you're not spending more than you should in repairs, making sure that your maintenance becomes stabilized where it's a little more predictable also. So you see a gain in your operational expenses, and then you see an equity in your new selling of your new leased vehicles. Do you want to add anything to
At the end of the
examples?
day, I mean, it's all about proactive fleet planning, right? When we first order vehicles, we're gonna have to wait a period of time, but like Jesse said, we're gonna meet several times per year. We're gonna go over your needs. We're gonna get them on order way ahead of time so that you know when they're gonna be coming in, and that's when you want the vehicles to be there.
Right.
We are very good at managing fleets, and having us in your corner is only gonna be more beneficial to you. I think of an example of one of my counties. They had a situation I was telling you about before. We went to Connecticut to get them the blue Chargers they wanted, and we had them shipped in. It was an emergency situation. We didn't have time to wait 20 weeks for the factory order. So that's what Jesse's saying about national leverage. We can get vehicles. We can use our resources. So yeah.
I would like for you guys, and I'm gonna bring the other department heads in a minute as we listen to this. Tell us about a county that you are already in, that's ahead of the game, who's got a sheriff's department that you're using, also has a road department maybe, or ordering F-150s or trucks like that. Kind of give us an
Yeah.
example of what we could look at and say, okay, now we understand this better.
Mhm.
As to how their program is working. You understand what I'm
Do you
saying?
wanna go, do you wanna take that with one of your current?
Yeah,
Okay.
Marshall County, for
Yeah,
example,
please.
Eddie.
Marshall County, okay.
Yeah,
I
Eddie
know Kevin
McGuire.
Neal,
Yep,
the
Kevin Neal.
judge there.
And then Brad Warnings, I work with a lot of there as well, but they've been on the program now for, gosh, I'm not sure, 3 or 4 years. We've gotten to the point where we're cycling vehicles. Actually, we just got some vehicles going for Eddie out there as well. There, that was the example I used when they were in a bind and they needed those specific blue chargers where we were able to go to Connecticut to get them. Now we had to pay for, shipping them in, but still it was better than them putting engines in it or whatever they needed to do. But road department, every department's all on board. We've gotten to the point where we are early cycling vehicles. We're taking advantage of the market to where, not just them, but a lot of my other government entities were actually, when it comes to trucks, we are, after a year or two, we're replacing them. I know it sounds crazy, but after a year or two, and the vehicles may only have 10, 15,000 miles, we're selling them for more than what they bought them for. And so again, taking that money and moving it into the vehicles, reducing that spend. A lot of examples, a lot of different counties we work with. I mean, we could go on and on about the power that we're able to do and help, again, bring that financially, drive down their spend.
Right,
So.
with
so
safer vehicles.
Correct.
I'm gonna ask this question because I'm really trying to get to the, make sure everybody gets the information. So if you, let's take Marshall County, that's who you brought up, that's fine. So how many sheriff cars does Marshall County order in a year?
I'd have to look back and see historically. They order every year. This year's been a little unique because it's just hard to get vehicles. But gosh, put me on the
Last
spot.
time I looked, I think they
I-
were 6. I think it was 6 that they, when
I
I
want to
looked
say
at
it's
them
about 6 or
before.
7 a year, probably.
Okay, so, and I'm building this case, so you'll understand where I'm going, okay? So what about the road department? What does the road department order?
Their
I
road
could look it up,
department,
but-
you wanna look it up,
Yeah.
and get an actual, typically a road department from an onboarding standpoint, your road department is gonna order more on the front end. So like take City of Nicholasville as an example, they got 16 new trucks.
At one time?
At one time.
Wow.
Because the more you bite off on the front end, and again, it's a unique environment, so I know that this is a change in philosophy
Yeah,
for everyone, so don't feel like you have to do a larger number. That's not what I'm saying, but I do want to be honest in that the more you bite off on the front end, the faster you're able to phase into the program where we are selling your leased vehicles or your newer vehicles. Let's just call them newer vehicles, whether you lease or purchase, either way. We're selling newer vehicles. Right now, when I look at your fleet, and this is no shame on you, you're in the majority, this is how everyone starts, so I'm not poo-pooing anybody, but your fleet is aging. And the equity, the value of most of your vehicles, over 60% of your vehicles are at a place beyond what we would have recommended to replace them. That impacts your safety, that impacts your operating at a standard vehicle with standardized features, that impacts how much you're spending in your routine maintenance, your fuel, your repairs, all of that. So when the road department says, okay, I've got several, 2,500s that we could operate at a 1,500 level, or I need a 3,500, and we pick off a big chunk to then replace on the front end, so that way you're phasing into the program, because like Joe said, a lot of times in year one, it makes sense. And we look at every angle of financials to compare your purchase price, your fuel, your maintenance, and your resale to make a case and say, financially, it is responsible for you to replace these vehicles at year one because you're going to make money off of them. So they bite them off a big chunk, knowing that they're going to get a big chunk of return on the back end. That's why they bid off 16. I know I'm speaking in cities, I'm just trying to pull some recents. City of Scottsville, they started with 8 interceptors, the ones that I'm looking at for Chris. They started with 8 because they wanted to bite off a bigger chunk. Now their fleet's smaller. I think they have like 17 vehicles, but you're talking about a significant portion. And the reason they were able to do that and stay within their budget is by utilizing our equity lease, which is very different. Now I'm gonna go down a different path, Judge, so bring me back if I need to. But when I say equity lease, it is not what you're thinking of as a traditional, if you or I were to go onto a dealership lot and we were gonna lease a vehicle. Nope, very different. This is a market value finance where you're taking your delivered price of the vehicle with your government, your state contract pricing. So none of that changes. You actually get a little bit of love from Enterprise on the front end. Not a whole lot, but $200 a car makes a big difference. We're gonna finance it down to a balance where we say we can sell this vehicle above that balance and all of that equity comes back to you. Now, a sheriff's vehicle is, or your heavily equipped vehicles are gonna be different. I'm gonna wanna hold on to those longer because you wanna get the full value of the equipment out of them. But we're still gonna be looking at when a government drives low miles, but operates an equitable vehicle, you can tap into what Enterprise Rent-A-Car does, which is, by the way, they are not in the business of making money off Florida weekend rentals. Enterprise Rent-A-Car makes their money off of selling low mileage vehicles wholesale, hand selling them, making a profit and getting new vehicles. They're flipping. They're just flipping. We can do that and apply that same philosophy, and you can run your fleet here in Franklin County just like Enterprise Rent-A-Car operates across the country because you are buying so low and you are selling high. So
What
does
about-
that make sense? So your equity lease just allows you to do more with less. That's why they're able to buy it off those numbers. But if you wanted to pay cash for your vehicles, let's take an F-150, let's just say 35,000, you're gonna pay 35,000. We're gonna finance it down to 15,000, but we say we can sell it for 25,000. You get 10 grand coming back to you that then you're gonna roll to the purchase of your next vehicle, which is gonna reduce the cost there, which is also gonna reduce your monthly payment. See what I'm getting at? So like an equity lease, if you have a budget of 87,000, let's just say, Sheriff, your vehicles, they're gonna be around 40,000, right? Maybe more with equipment installed. So you're only able to get 2.5, maybe your budget does not allow you to get the vehicles you need in a perfect world, correct?
I think
So
I
you're
think
getting
we were
more.
looking at about 33,000, weren't we? And then you would transfer the
Equipment,
equipment. Wasn't
Yeah.
that right, Chris?
Yeah, some equipment we can put in. but
you
not
can
all.
transfer it.
Uh-huh.
Right, but what I'm getting at is that like, you take your total purchase price of a vehicle, and if you opted to lease, you can buy off more and replace more, or you can pay cash through us and we can still cycle and sell your vehicles and all of that equity is coming back to you. But anyway, there's just a lot of options. Joe, do you wanna talk about Marshall
Yeah,
County?
I got some info on Marshall County. So
Okay.
we partnered with them in April 2019. So, call it 2.5 years. They have a total of 92 vehicles. They have 44 vehicles through us that they purchased through us, and then 4 more vehicles on order. So they've done actually 48 vehicles through this program. Sheriff Department has 20, and they have 2 on order right now as well. So,
20 that are in the program?
that
we
acquire through
operate,
us.
okay.
Yeah. So they're heavily penetrated right now in terms of enterprise fleet vehicles. They've really adopted the plan, and so call it 10 vehicles a year approximately that they've been doing on average, maybe a little less in terms of sheriff vehicles, but
10 sheriff vehicles a year, and they are leasing, correct? Yeah. For that
Almost.
reason of more with less. Your department's not gonna see a huge savings. It just is gonna allow you to stabilize in terms of predicting how many vehicles you get a year, how much it's gonna cost, that type of thing, because your vehicles are so expensive and heavily equipped. We're looking at just helping you do more for less and bringing some stability. It may be a cost neutral, but whereas you only have 4 newer vehicles, you're able to have several vehicles that are on a 4 or 5 year hold. Does that make sense?
out of
Yeah.
all of my government clients, approximately 25, 0 pay cash. They all do the open-ended equity lease, like Jesse was mentioning. But again, we can do it. If you prefer to do cash, it's just you can do more with,
Explain that, what you mean by cash and zero.
instead of paying cash, meaning pay down the vehicle to $1. So if it's a $30,000 vehicle, you pay $29,999,
Mhm.
and then you don't have a monthly payment, obviously. But in terms of the open-ended equity lease, you know, you call it a $30,000 vehicle as a $600 payment or whatever it might be. So you can do a lot more, get a lot more vehicles and kind of get rid of those high mileage vehicles that are costing them the maintenance, right? And so that's what 100% of my clients do, my government clients, is they do that open-ended equity lease. Because instead of getting, with the money that you have in the budget, instead of getting 4 vehicles, you can get 16 vehicles for that same amount of money, just as example.
And as an annual cost.
As
you're
an
saying.
annual cost,
Yes.
right?
So give me an example, what is an annual cost to get 16 vehicles on that? I know it's
But-
hard, because if you took,
Union County did
okay,
10.
that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah,
is it-
Union County did, they told me that they had $110,000 to work with. Here are the areas here are the vehicles that we really know we need. We were actually able to, and there's a puzzle to this too, right? Like there's a puzzle of selling some of your existing fleet to then roll a gain. There's that too, but they said we have $110,000. What can we do with it? Give us your best option. And they were able to get 10 new vehicles year one. Now, not all of those have delivered yet. Now, but they took our recommendation and said, whatever you need right now, we need to get it on order. And then Joe was going actually back out to meet with them a few weeks after. They haven't even gotten their first round of vehicles, but because of where the market's at, we got to be planning in advance. And so I don't know how many are they doing their second
They
year?
actually just Adam just signed DocuSigns for more trucks.
Okay.
Just came through, so, but how many are they doing?
Yeah. Do you know how many they are looking at doing for year 2?
Well, we're waiting right now to get more on order. We're waiting for government discounts to come from Chrysler and Ram. They haven't been released yet, but we have them in queue. We're just waiting for us to be able to order them. I don't know. I probably have another
So
10.
they got 10 vehicles. 2 of theirs, I think, were sheriffs,
Mhm.
I think, originally, and then now they're gonna be adding more in, but
Well, so give me an example of the types of vehicles out of those 10.
yeah.
Got sheriff, do you get 150? John Mitchell, John Mitchell or Chief Brewer or Hutchison, what normally, what types of trucks do you all have?
Most of ours, we are buying a minimum of the like 250s, 2500s, something like that. But, you know, we don't have very many of those. All our stuff's a whole lot bigger.
Yeah, we can, John, we can work with as much of your fleet as you want us to, everything from down to a Nissan Versa up to a bucket truck. I've got a single axle, that I am working on for Lewis County. City of Louisville, we're quoting packers and dump trucks to them. So we can help you with as much of that as you want us to. There's also the operational part of this, Judge, that I think is important when it comes to some of your heavily equipped vehicles on road department and sheriff, is that I'm not going to change. If you've got specs and you've got special things that you need in your equipment, we're just going to pass that through and facilitate getting the vehicle, installing the equipment, and delivering it to you so that you put your butt in a seat and drive it and can go on and operate, and you're not having to coordinate getting a vehicle back and forth to wherever. We're going to make sure that we factor that into your holding cost analysis every year of looking at how much does it cost to, get the vehicle you need, how much does it cost to operate it, holding versus replacing, all of that. But when it comes to your equipment, even on some of those heavier duty vehicles, you're going to want to hold on to them longer. We're not going to treat those like we would a light duty F-150 truck. Does that make sense?
John, she's asking you.
Yes, it does.
So
Kevin, what type of vehicles other than fire trucks do you all order?
Judge, we've got We've got like 9 vehicles. 3 of those are command type vehicles. The brush trucks, they're 3/4 ton brush trucks that we run. There's 6 of those.
Yeah.
So,
Kevin, we work with, Anchorage and Middletown Fire and Rescue. Do you happen to know Joe Wolf over there?
I don't believe so, no.
I could connect you with him, and anyone can call him, but they're another great example. Kind of like with Judge Wells, I've gone knocking on their door for multiple years in a row, trying to share this program with them and their board, and got in the door, looked at their fleet, and they said, if we're gonna do this, we want to do it right, and we want the most amount savings possible. And I said, okay, well, that means we're gonna be replacing a lot of vehicles on the front end. Are you sure you're ready for that? Can I bring my best foot forward? And they said, absolutely, that's what we want to see. And if that doesn't work for us, we'll whittle it down and find a different starting point. So I brought in changing all of their fleet. They had a mixture of sedans, they had a mixture of Tahoes, Suburbans, 3500s, 2500s, F-150s, yada, yada, and they were still needing an additional 10 vehicles because they'd merged. So, but they couldn't fund them. They couldn't fund those additional 10 because they were spending money everywhere else. So we moved everything into either a Tahoe or an F-150, all centered around the resale part and saving them hundreds of thousands of dollars and getting them new vehicles. So all of that was driven by looking at having us eyeball what the right replacement time was, what's the right vehicle type without sacrificing the job that vehicle needs to do and taking advantage of a market. And so they bit off a big chunk and did how many did they?
What was it, like 30?
I think they did 35 vehicles to start, and then now they just ordered another round. Again,
Is that every year or?
that's just until they get all of their fleet updated to where they're new vehicles, because again, going back to that, once you're selling new vehicles, that's where you're able to really reduce your cost and save money. And let me say this too, I think this is an important part of distinguishing between if you lease or purchase. So when you do our equity lease, market value finance, Joe's looking at this with you every year, multiple times a year, to say, this is how much you're spending. Here's the fair market value of your vehicles. Here's what the market's doing. Here's the data to justify we should get out of these. We should replace these. We should order these. What does your budget do? Looking at all of that to bring those recommendations to you. And we have flexibility to change that. So let's say I set, let's just take a 3,500. John, I know you've got a few of those. Let's just take that as an example. If we set it up on a 5-year term for you going 12,000 miles, either we find you're going more miles or the market makes sense to sell it before that term, we can do that. We can adjust it. You're not locked in terms of a mileage. You're not locked in terms of a term. You're not being penalized for going over your mileage. And if you want to take a baseball bat and beat that truck up, I wouldn't recommend it because it doesn't look nice. But you can do that because the vehicle is still yours. All it does is affect your resale. But we are constantly evaluating, how do we keep the county equitable? And sometimes that means extending a lease, shortening it, selling it, holding it. And we bring those to you for you to have quantified data to make a qualified decision on how you move forward. And that's where Joe's, again, I help you dream, and then Joe makes the dream come true.
All right, so what happens, in our case, we have it leased, and so, Jeremy Colston, from the maintenance department, has gotten a truck and a ladder truck, tool truck over the past 2 years. Isn't that right, Jeremy? Haven't you gotten a brand new truck and a tool truck?
Yes, utility truck, yes.
Okay, so in 2 years, so we've got 2 trucks that are a year and 2 years old.
Mhm.
So John Mitchell's got some, like that. So what do we do? What do you do with those trucks? Do you just keep them? Do you, and they're paid for, because everything we do, we pay for them up front with monies to do that. So
Yeah.
what happens with that?
We can help monitor those vehicles. Your older stuff that's like on the verge of going kaput, just hold it and just don't put any more, don't sink any more money into it. Now, these newer vehicles that you purchase that are, less than 100,000 miles, you just got them. We can still help you monitor those. We can still put those on a tracking where we're looking at how much you're spending, and we can also look at the fair market value and say, I know you just got this. It ain't old, but it's also worth X amount. And so if we sold that and we made this off of it, that's a whole year, and you got a new replacement truck and you're able to purchase 2 others for the money that you made if you were leasing. But those are things that we can help look at for you, and we just want the data. That's really it. When it comes to your new vehicles or your existing vehicles that are newer, we just want the data to be able to say, how do we get you what you need in the most savings possible faster? And sometimes that means evaluating your fair market value to say it makes sense to sell this so that you get a new replacement vehicle. A newer one is great because right now the inventory is a freaking bar fight. So have a new one, go ahead and order its replacement. It's not going to die on you in the meantime. That new one's going to come in, sell off that one, and then you've paid for potentially 3 other vehicles, or at least gotten the replacement you need with some extra cash. Does that make sense?
Do you
It's
all
math.
have surplus property sales? Because we can't just sell them off. We have to go through surplus property to get rid of our vehicles.
Yeah.
It's a terrible law. But that-
Your existing fleet, your existing vehicles that you have right now, this would be up to your county attorney to I would say all of our counties sell their existing vehicles, their COVs first on their own, correct? Or do you
Not
have
all the
anyone?
time. Not all the time. It just depends on what your county attorney feels is appropriate.
We would look at your fair market value of some of them, but when you do an RFP, which is what I'm recommending, you're bidding fleet management. We are not a dealer. We are not an acquisition source. That's part of what we do, but our value proposition, when I go to build a sandwich and I'm making a sandwich, I really like having 2 ends of bread. I don't like it with just the front, I don't like it with just the back, and I don't like it without having anything in the middle. Same thing with your vehicles. We're more than just purchasing and we're more than just resale. There's a whole lot of meat that happens in between, right? So when you bid an RFP, you're bidding that full sandwich. You're bidding the full program, which allows us to sell your vehicles. If your county attorney approves us selling your existing vehicles, we can do that, but we have to have that in an agreement and an addendum to make sure that we're not violating any of your current statutes. The other side of that is if we cannot sell your current vehicles, we can still put a fair market value on them as to what you should get and help you determine, do we need to hold on to them or should you be going and surplusing them? Part of phasing into that program is we got to offload your existing fleet. It may make sense for you to keep going to bid on your older stuff or just let it go to junk and scrap it, put a sticker on it, whatever you want to do with it. But like I told Tambra, like, we couldn't sell a fire truck for you, but we're not going to advise you to sell something through us that doesn't make financial sense to you. That's, again, we're looking at all of that. But when it comes to your customer owned vehicles, really falls down to county attorney. Some let us, some don't. That's up to y'all to decide. But when you bid, you're getting out of the surplus game. When you work with fleet management, you're getting out of the game of putting a bid out for new vehicles. You're getting out of the game of bidding on a resale. You're getting out of all of that and allowing us as your fleet experts and consultants to help you manage it. Does that make sense?
So, Robert or Charlie. I'll go to the department heads one and let you ask questions. Then I want to go to the magistrates and Michael and Sherry and have you ask questions. So you all want to, do y'all have any questions?
I don't have any questions, sir.
Okay. Charlie?
No, I don't have any questions. We don't have much of a fleet at the park.
Poor Charlie, the one that's speaking up there, and he
We
always,
get the hand-me-downs.
he gets all the
Oh,
hand-me-downs.
Charlie,
If Charlie would get a new truck, he'd be so excited.
Yeah, I've been here 25 years and we bought a new truck in 2014. That's the only new vehicle we've ever had at the park.
what was it, Charlie? What'd you buy?
An F-150.
You know, those are the most equitable trucks right now that your vehicle, I would bet it's not heavily equipped, correct?
It's not, and it's a 2014 and I think it's got 40,000 miles on it.
I have great news for you, Charlie. Not only could you, if the court allows, you could get a new truck every year now, working with us, and also you could be the money generator for the budget.
Well, Charlie.
Congratulations, Charlie.
After all these years, finally got it right.
Charlie, I have a vested interest in parks. I serve on the Parks Alliance Board in Louisville. And so I
Okay.
have a vested interest in making sure that our parks have what they need, because I see it as more as just trees and green space. So I would, any questions you have, you just let me know.
Will do. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Charlie. Squire Muller, you want to go first? Do you have questions?
That's fine, Judge. I thank you, and I appreciate them coming to give the presentation. I'm pretty familiar with kind of programs like this, but I do appreciate them sharing this information. So I'd like some time just to kind of look over it and maybe even reach out to a couple of the other counties around us that participate with them. If they could maybe share some contact information, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Squire, we can connect you with anyone if you want to. Did they get the packet?
They do, and on
Okay.
page 4.
On page 4 of the information we shared, there's a reference list there. The ones at the top have been in the program the longest. Harlan County is a great contact. They've seen a great many cycles. And then also, what spurred this conversation to begin with was Owen County. Also a great contact. But if you feel free, if you want to text me or call me, and I can definitely share contact information with you. Joe and I in here talking is one thing, but talking to people that are actually doing it, seeing it benefit is a whole nother.
Absolutely.
And
No, I agree. Thank you.
our magistrates are actually going to be at a conference next
Next
week.
Mhm.
So if you could, along with these local agencies, especially the counties, if you
Yeah.
could give me a name to go along with them. And I don't mind to share that with our squires so that they can maybe try to make those connections next week. That's perfect timing.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And that's typically, if you've been to other conferences, you may have seen the loud redhead running around. I've been chasing Judge Wells for a few years. He finally let me talk to him. I think, again, it's one thing. I believe in the program. I believe in what we do. It's not a perfect process right now, but again, I will always go back to, if you could have someone just watching out for you and watching out for your dollars and having us help, like it's only an additional resource. That's all we are, is to help you navigate this, because as dark as it is right now in the fleet, I know if you watch the news, everyone knows about the chip shortages, but like, I even went in to get my windshield replaced last week, and borderline had to pitch a fit because they told me they didn't have a windshield because there's a glass shortage. But then once I said, well, I'm an enterprise fleet, my vehicle's a fleet vehicle, I know you've got a windshield. And you know what? Miraculously, they found me a windshield. And the reason they found that windshield for me is because I was coming under the name of Enterprise. And because and also it didn't cost as much. They were going to sell that additional windshield to just somebody on the street for probably more and to have it replaced. But because I came under Enterprise, the pricing was stabilized. I got priority, I got pushed to the front of the line, and I got what I needed to go about my business and do what I needed to do to put food on my table. It's no different for you all. So it is a wild time. We're making a lot of sometimes crazy recommendations and having you bite off more than what you should, but trust us that this is what we look at every day. On the way here, Joe was even, GM is going through this thing with allocating vehicles. He's on the phone. I hear him every day telling people, if we don't do it now, I don't know when you'll get your next vehicles. And then you're going to be losing money and you're going to be upset that you don't have what you need to carry out your business. And that's the value proposition we can offer you once you're a partner. But it's all about getting started and finding how to make that happen.
Okay, Squire Sebastian?
Thank you, Judge, and appreciate you guys coming on today. I would be like Squire Muller. There's quite a bit to unpack in this, and what I'd really like to do is firsthand speak with clients who are using you. There may be clients who are using other services that are similar, so somewhere in the mix that will help inform this conversation for me.
Love it.
You do the Franklin County Health Department, right?
They weren't under me, but do you work with them?
You've got Health Department. you've
Yeah,
got Franklin County.
yeah. I did not bring them on, and he
I
does not
don't
manage
manage,
them.
I do manage almost every other health department, but for some reason I don't manage them.
Okay,
Yeah.
so,
We can look into that.
yeah, I will,
And when you're reaching
I'll
out to
be meeting with
people,
her on Monday, so I'm gonna talk about.
when y'all are reaching out to, just know everyone's different. Everybody, the vehicles they operate is different. How they cycle and replace them is different. And there's also a component that is also different. Different people take advantage of different maintenance offerings. Just know, don't hesitate to ask a question. I'm yet to come up against something that we can't work with you on. But a lot of times what sabotages a partnership just is an unanswered question that had we been able to answer it
Sure.
and find a way. So there's no silly question. And our phones are always on if you need some clarification of, Franklin County Health Department is using maintenance, but we don't need to use maintenance. Well, that's fine. That is okay. That is okay. Or they're paying cash or they're leasing and we want to pay cash. Okay, that's fine. That's okay. There's all different, this is your program. Everything's specific to you all.
Well, so there's a lot here.
A lot.
There's a whole lot here, and like the Squire said, we needed some time to decipher it, as you metaphorically spoke about a fire hose or a fire hydrant all at one time coming out. But I do think it is extremely important that you and the sheriff in particular sit down and talk and go over and look at his needs, because we're 1 month and 2 weeks away, middle of December. He's got to present a budget. And I know that he's going to want cars in that budget. And so if we can, we don't have, you don't have to, Chris, but if there's a way that we can come up with a program that can at least help him get started, then maybe we get our toes in the water.
Yep. I like pinky toes in water.
And I know you use that analogy while you're out in the Utah. But anyway, so we do that, we get our feet wet a little bit and we see how it's working for you, and then maybe we can start moving in it more, or we'll stick with him. Well, that just depends. But today, department heads, it was just for you to kind of hear what they're talking about. In the meantime, Jesse, we will give you the department head's email address, and I would appreciate any correspondence you can give to them and talk with them. But face-to-face, email, whatever, you and Chris, I would appreciate if you all would talk. Chris, you go whatever route you want to go, but at least I want to make sure that if we don't go with them, there's a reason and we know that we've tried, okay? Is that fair enough, Chris, with you?
No, I will say the same, like, we're interested in any option we can do to improve our fleet, have safer vehicles, save money,
Yeah.
and not have a headache, broke down cars, whatever. So-
Amen.
And I
Amen.
appreciate everybody's time and efforts to improve, because, at the end of the day, that's what we all want.
Right,
Mhm.
Save money and have safe vehicles and less headaches.
So
especially yours.
Yes.
once you present to a local government, do you find that they typically then go out and meet with other fleet management companies, or do they put out an RFP? What?
Typically from here, that from this point, typically a next step is you have two options. You can kind of identify what you want to do, but typically most people go ahead and they do an RFP because you can fine tune what you want, but at least the bid is done in order to say, okay, what other fleet management wants to then bid to work with you all. I recommend doing that because then we can submit our bid for that. I will say, just full disclosure, the other fleet management companies that are like us you have Enterprise Fleet Management, which we just surpassed Element and ARI in terms of how many vehicles we have on lease in the world. So we are the number one fleet, and that's not included in there because it was just announced, but your other fleet management companies that do things like what we do, they are not local, but they do provide the same service. It's Element ARI. So I'm going to an RFP with Brown Forman right now with comparing fleet managements, but in a county situation, they are not going to come to show up because they only work with larger, more corporate fleets.
Okay.
Y'all are our bread and butter. So we may be the only one to bid, but I do think that it's a good due diligence to at least put it out there to say, here's a fleet management service. Who wants to bid for it?
Okay.
And during that time is when we iron out and create what I call a budget tool that says, okay, here are the vehicles of interest that we want to do. Here's the amount of money at the top that we've got to start with. How many can we do? Do we want to lease? Do we want to pay cash? What makes the most sense? And then we build the puzzle of backing it out from there.
Okay.
And then, and so you run the RFP, there's a vote, who wins the RFP. Okay, we're going to work with Enterprise Fleet Management. Here's the cost, vote to move forward. Judge signs a vehicle order. We place the vehicle order, and then you are now a fleet management customer, correct? And I'm not trying to pressure anyone. I want this to be a good decision for you all, because if it's not a good decision for you, then it's not a good decision for me. And I pride my integrity, and so does Joe. So we want this to work for everybody. We want it to be a good start for everyone. But I will tell you, it is part of our job and is my responsibility to tell you when vehicles are going to cut off. So Ford Interceptors, they're open right now, but I can get an email later. I could have gotten one just now that says they're going to shut off in X amount of time. So in my opinion, if this is something that's worth even considering, it would be my professional recommendation to do an RFP, to have that approval process in place. And then if you decide not to do it, then there's no harm done, but at least the groundwork has been laid for us to pull a trigger and make a decision to get you what you need. Because once that window closes, y'all,
Long time.
it's going to be a long time before it reopens to even order, to then wait to get it.
Okay.
So keep those things in mind. That's our value. That's my responsibility. I just want to be clear on that.
Could you provide me with a list of maybe just like your last agencies that you all responded to an RFP, so I could reach out to them to see how they bid that out? So we don't have someone here at the county that's completely assigned to doing that. Our planning and
Okay.
zoning director writes a lot of them just because he's done so many. So
Sure.
we kind of look up to him to do that.
Your other option would be Sourcewell. If you wanted to piggyback on a Sourcewell contract, we've
Okay.
won that through them. That's on
Is that through the
page.
state contract?
That's approved on page.
Well, let's,
Anyway, I would
let's
do an
go
RFP
there.
because we can be more aggressive.
yeah,
Okay.
let's have that talk. Let's let everybody. Chris, do you have anything else you want to say?
No, just thank everybody for their time and efforts, and we'll just work together and see what happens.
Okay. So everybody up there, Michael, Michael, you are, Squire Sebastian, have anything else to say, to ask or?
No, I just want to thank them for their presentation and yeah, we'll move forward and see where we go. Thank you.
Okay,
Absolutely.
Squire Sebastian, you good?
Yes, sir. And again, appreciate everybody coming out to participate in this conversation this morning and look forward to the opportunity to get more information to inform this conversation. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
Are you all okay to adjourn?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. Thanks
Thank you,
for the
everybody.
general public for watching. I know you found this very interesting. We did too. There's a lot of information out there. Department heads, thank you for being on. And please, when Jesse sends you an email, if you have questions, any thoughts, any concerns, make sure you reply back to her and we'll talk about the possibility of an RFP going forward. Thanks, everybody, for
Thank you
watching.
all.
And thank you. We are adjourned. This committee's adjourned. Thank